Right, hello. Welcome back. And I guess now we're going to talk a little bit about what Galway was like, Ireland. So we really are just kind of bouncing all around the place here. Now we've been to London, Edinburgh, and we're heading over to Galway. That was Galway was just a flash in a sense. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to write in my journal what it was like because essentially we flew out of Edinburgh into Dublin, took a bus from Dublin right out of the airport straight to Galway, checked into a hotel or a hostel there, and the next day we did a tour of the coastline, which I'll get into in more detail, obviously. And then we came back and we bussed back to Dublin and we flew over to Amsterdam. So it was like one day, action packed as can be. Went out to see the one of the seven natural wonders of the world, the Cliffs of Moher. So we got into Galway, I guess, and checked into this hostel. And this was kind of the first hostel that was like really nice. Like the London one, like I said, was crickety little hallways and above a bar, and the Edinburgh one was really like a homey hostel feel, huge social areas, huge kitchens, and the Galway one was almost like a very, very nice modern apartment in a sense, as far as like the kitchen and the living space was kind of amalgamated into one thing, and then they had these two massive MacBooks for computers, which was like, what's going on here? This is like some serious cash thrown into their computers. And then all the rooms and the bathrooms were super clean, and we had these electronic key cards like you would at a hotel, which I thought was like, wow, that's so smart, like versus handing over and giving up keys and giving them back and putting deposits down and not putting deposits down. We just had an electronic tap card that got us into our rooms, kitchens, into the doors, into the bathrooms, and it was brilliant. So once we checked in and settled into Galway, we booked our tour for this Cliffs of Moher thing, and I believe it was like 40 euros for the day, and we headed along the coastline and made quite a few little stops along the way to the Cliffs of Moher. So the first stop we made was at a castle, a very old castle, very small. I would say it was no bigger than like a high school, a small high school, an elementary school maybe. Maybe even smaller than that. It was nothing like ginormous by any means. It was a nice little quaint castle on a lake, and it was really cool to see like how old this structure was, and it still stood there completely fine and really well maintained. I think it was maintained by the government, but it was really cool to see that this building had been there for hundreds of years and still stood there. The next stop we made was a tomb site. It was a 6,000-year-old tomb, older than the Egyptians, and on top of the tomb was a massive slab of rock. Like, it was huge. There'll be a photo below it. And they rolled this slab of rock up onto the tomb like 6,000 years ago, and I was just like, holy crap. That is incredible, and that was really cool to see. Like, essentially, what they were saying was the oldest grave known to man, I guess, like that we've preserved in a sense. And another stop we made was at this really, really old church that had dropped all of the roofing, and it was just the stone walls and the entrance gateways, and that was really cool. There were some stories that he told us about this church that were relevant at the time. I would say now I look back on it, and it's really interesting to hear these stories when you go through it. It's kind of like you have this personal guide person who knows everything about the site you're on, and you can ask all the questions. But at the end of the day, it was just really cool because this whole tour basically took us out into these remote areas of Ireland where it was just country hill after country hill, and beside these churches were, crown land where the cows were eating the grass, and it was just quite an amazing sight. And from this church, we went into this tiny town just outside of the Cliffs of Moher, and enjoyed lunch there, which was really quite an enjoyable experience. We ended up getting a recommendation to go check out this fudge and chocolate shop there. I had some really, really good fudge and chocolate, which I was not expecting, and enjoyed the scenery of the ocean as we ate lunch, and we saw the Cliffs of Moher kind of in the distance, and there was cows roaming around the field, and you'll see the photos of that as well below. And then eventually we get up into the Cliffs of Moher, and was that something or what? That was pretty incredible, I would say. So we get up in there, and the entire facilities, I would say, for the Cliffs of Moher, they've built into the mountain, so it's very low environmental impact, very hidden in a sense. It almost looks like kind of Batman's fortress, eco-friendly styled, with like glass windows right before like a grass rooftop that melds into the hillside, and it was kind of really interesting layout for their facilities. And then you walk up onto the cliffside, and we didn't actually end up going down towards the left, which would have been, I guess, the south side of the Cliffs of Moher, and actually walked along the Cliffs of Moher. We took our way up to the right and essentially got a better view of the Cliffs of Moher. And that was kind of just incredible to see these cliffs that stood hundreds of feet tall above the ocean level, and was all created by the energy of the ocean waves crashing up in such perfect symmetry, and just creating this wall of rock that has stood there for a long time, and it just looks so pristine and like something too good to be true in a sense. And it was really cool because from there we could walk. We actually ended up walking past the recommended tourist area, we'll call it, and there you could walk along the edge of the cliff, which got kind of a little bit scary for some people, I would say, for sure. And it was just really nice to get, and so you could go out and out and out and out and out, and eventually it would start to wrap back out towards the sea, so we could get an even better view of the Cliffs of Moher. And I thought that was just an incredible experience to be able to walk all the way out there and see the whole park. I guess it would be like walking to Ambleside, and you can only walk along Ambleside, but then we had access to all of Dunderave as well, so we walked along that way, and you could kind of get a really good scope of what Stanley Park looks like beside Jericho and into False Creek or into that English Bay area. So it was really just getting a grander scale image of what the Cliffs of Moher were, which I thought was crazy. And then once you started to wrap around, there was the rocks would like curve out, so there was no support under the rocks, and people were out walking on these things, and they were just as high as the Cliffs of Moher, which I thought was incredible. And we eventually hopped back on the bus and went back into town, and that was kind of the main adventure, I would say, in Galway. But the other thing that we did in Galway was I was fortunate enough to get out and go shopping for my girlfriend. Jen really wanted a ring from Galway that was, I guess, what do you call it? Like heritage ring of Ireland. It's a love, friendship, and loyalty ring that has a heart on the top of it. And I thought that shopping experience was quite fun because we got a chance, just Jen and I, to walk through this small town of Galway and go talk to local shop owners and just see what the little town had to offer and what it was all about, and kind of gave Mitch and Lisa some time to hang out alone as well, which was nice. I mean, after traveling together for 4 or 5 days, every once in a while, it's nice to split off and get some alone time to a certain degree. I still love them to death, but I mean, everyone gets a little tired of everyone after a while. That's all I'm trying to say. And it was really nice to see this town and just walk around. And we ended up being able to find a ring that I think generally likes. And it was really cool. And we got back on the bus the next day, and we headed back over to Dublin. And from Dublin, we flew over to Amsterdam. And I guess the only thing that I have written in my journal from Ireland is I get on the plane ride to Amsterdam. It was something that I wrote in my journal, I guess, and I'm trying to find it. One moment, this is going to be part of that unedited thing. So I guess here it was kind of the point in which I had started to read my books. I have obviously a huge passion for reading books, as you guys can see below, and one of the thoughts that I wrote in my books from page 90 of my book, The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver, was on a completely different note. I've gotten a lot of the book I'm reading, The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver. I'm starting to understand completely the complexity of big data, as the first common issue is the approach and the weighing of the acquiring information, not being able to hedgehog on fully committing to one stream of information, rather taking a fox-like approach and exploring a little bit about many options, then slowly narrowing the most probable answer while never fully committing to a certain answer, staying away from the dichotomy and preferring an answer with probabilistic values such as 0.82, 0.1, 0.08. Even though this seems like an easy cop-out, it provides a much more accurate answer over the long term. So that is a note that I wrote in my journal about the book I was reading. And I just wanted to talk about that for 2 minutes or so. I think this was really cool for me to read and understand, because I really am a big kind of numbers geek in a sense. My brain definitely works a lot more favorably towards the numbers versus the language and the creative side. And it was really cool to read about this big data and realize that this is applied to all sides of life. Really, to not be closed-minded in a sense and just go, this is what I want and this is what I want, period. Obviously, there's a time and a place for that. But I think the majority of the time people go ahead and they say these things when realistically there's a probability of, let's say eating, for example. There's a probability of you going out for dinner for sushi or for protein or for steak dinner. And the moment you set yourself on one or another of these options, you close all the other options versus just saying, with Jen, for instance, there's probably an 80% chance we're going to go to sushi. And there's a 10% chance we're going to go get poutine, and there's like a 10% chance we're going to go get steak dinner, or maybe like 0. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that it was very interesting back that early in my trip to realize that you can always leave things on the table, never fully take things off the table of your options, because at the end of the day, those things, even if you neglect them for a little while, you can bring them back and actually make them a reality and realize that maybe the things that you originally thought were the gung-ho things to do are no longer the things that you really should be doing, and it's not where the adventure is taking you. So I think I really applied this knowledge of this book and this taking a probabilistic approach versus a dichotomy to the options and the choices that we would have to make down the road in this travel, and really got the most out of my travel with the help of that knowledge and a lot more knowledge to come for sure. So I guess that was just a quick little note I wanted to talk about these books I'm reading because I get really excited about them. And that was the story of Galway. So now we're going to be heading back to Dublin and flying over to Amsterdam. So I'm sure some people are very curious about what we did in Amsterdam and how that all turned out and what the adventures are that we took there. So I will explain a lot more of that later. And in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this blog post and vlog about Ireland and Galway. I hope one day you guys get a chance to go see these amazing cliffs and rolling hills of countryside like I did, and really see the heritage of the English, the Western world in a way, and then where it all came from. So adios, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your guys' day. Thank you for watching.